767-637.
Yeah!
I got $10 worth of tickets. And he's asked us to meet him.
What I got here? All right.
Alright, now I'd like to introduce our speaker. No! Now I'd like to introduce our speakers. Since Rocky's not here, we have Camron speaking tonight.
Yeah, bud.
What's up, family? I'm Cameron. I'm a drug addict. Real quick, let me just get some audience participation. I spoke here about a month and a half ago. Who was here? Anybody? Quite a few people. Cool. I'm going to do something a little different tonight. I'm real nervous tonight as opposed to last time. And I personally think that that's because, in my opinion, the message that I'm carrying tonight, I mean, my story's cool, in my own opinion, but the message I'm carrying tonight has a special place in my heart. Because this is one of the things that changed it for me. You know, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is what we call the disease concept. You know, it's the first step concept. And after that, I'm going to talk about some things that are not in the book. And during that little segment, I will probably not make too many friends. I usually make a few enemies. But it's interesting nonetheless. So let's get down to it. You know, the reason that this holds such a special place in my heart is because I went in and out for a while. You know, in and out of the rooms, go into the rooms, go into IOP, wherever I was, and I'd raise my hand and be like, hey guys, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict. I had absolutely no idea what that meant. I just knew that I had an issue with drugs and alcohol, and that my life kind of sucked. I would come into the rooms, and no one pulled me aside. No one grabbed me and taught me what I'm going to show you guys here. But my standard of success, for me personally, is not whether or not everyone in this room stays sober. You know, I work in a place which is also a sober living, and I get to teach classes, and I get to do a lot of cool stuff. Again, my standard of success is not whether or not every single one of them stays sober. Chances are, they probably won't. Could they? Absolutely. You know, it doesn't matter if this is your first time at a meeting, if this is your first time in treatment, if this is your first time or 40th time, it's irrelevant. All of you have the exact same chance of staying sober from this moment on, contingent upon what you do outside of here. With that being said, the things that were given to me when I came into the rooms that changed the entire game for me were time and truth. The reason I'm here tonight is to give you those two things. So let's get down to it. Real quick, some audience participation. Who in here has gone into a meeting or gone into an IOP or wherever and addressed yourself as an alcoholic and a drug addict? I would assume the majority of us. So let's really talk about what that means. You know, the second part that I'm going to do, that's not in the book. Meetings are cool, love them, huge fan of the fellowship. However, a lot of times you go in and you hear things that are not entirely accurate. And I don't think that they're ill-intentioned. I don't think that they're, you know, meant to kill a newcomer. But I'm going to address a lot of those things. And I feel like the majority of those things that are thrown around, the cute slogans, the cute phrases, all that stuff that aren't relevant to me personally, come from people that do not understand this concept I'm about to talk about. So, constantly, my sponsees know it, the people I work with know it. I will go around and I'll ask people, what's your understanding of the first step? And what do you think the answer that I normally get is? You know, I admit I'm powerless and then my life's become unmanageable. Okay, usually when that's their answer, there will be some follow-up questions. At that point, I usually just assume they're not 100% sure. How am I powerless? How's my life unmanageable? That's what we're about to talk about. You know, the first step out of the book says that I need to learn to, or I need to fully concede to myself, to my innermost self, that I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict. How could I possibly do that if I don't know what that means? I know this is Rock's big book study, so I'm sure he's driven this point home time and time again. Has anyone seen these before? I know it's hard to see from far away. It's a disease cycle. I know about 40 people sitting right here have seen it before. I printed out about 70 of those. They're going around. Cool, grab those. So let's talk about it. The first aspect of this that's mentioned in the doctor's opinion is this idea of a physical allergy. You know, it doesn't personally make sense to me that I cannot control how much I drink because I'm just a fuck up, because I'm a loser, because my moral code sucks, any of those things. It doesn't really make sense. What does make sense to me is that I take a drink, I shoot a bag of dope, I smoke crack, and there's an actual reaction that happens within me that's different than normal people. You know, my mom can order and people are recording this and she's going to listen to it, so I just want to shout out my mother, who I love dearly. She can order a glass of wine and maybe take one sip of it and be like, I don't really like this, I'm not going to drink it. I'm like, you're absolutely insane. Like, I don't care if there's like a dead fish swimming around today, I'm drinking that wine. You know, I'm not drinking for taste, I'm drinking because I like the effect. You know, I have that reaction. So, all an allergy is, you know, it suggests that this is a manifestation of an allergy. So, all an allergy is it's an abnormal reaction. Some of you have heard me use the analogy before. I line 100 people up outside, again, normal people, probably not 100 people right here, and give them a bag of dope or a hit of crack, most of them will decline initially. Some of them will do it and be like, this is absolutely terrible, I'm never doing this again. And then a few of them will have our reaction, where we do it, rob the guy next to us and do his. It's the abnormal reaction. So, a couple of people have asked me to use this analogy. I'm allergic to peaches. These guys know. I can almost promise you 100% you will not find me in a hotel room on Dixie making peach smoothies tonight. It's not going to happen. What happened is that I eat peaches, I break out in hives. Anybody else in here break out in hives when they eat peaches? Yeah, mine's the abnormal reaction. So what happens as an alcoholic is I put a drink or a drug into my system and this phenomenon of craving develops. And all that is this overpowering desire for more. You know, I shoot a bag of dope. I'm no longer deciding how much dope I'm doing until I stop. That first bag is. You know, the Chinese have a proverb that says, man takes a drink takes a drink, and then drink takes the man. I can relate to that 100%. You know, I put that first one in my system, and it's a wrap. You know, that next one becomes more important than anything else. My mom will never understand that, because she doesn't have that reaction. You know, the way that I try to explain it to someone that's maybe not one of us is this idea of, next time you go swimming, dive into the pool, go underwater, stay under there as long as you possibly can until you feel like you're about to pass out, and then stay under like another 10, 15 seconds. The only thing you will be thinking about is that next breath, period. It doesn't matter what comes between you and that next breath, you will get that next breath. So like, sorry mom, if your bank account comes between me and that next breath, I'm going to get it. Like, it's not personal. And that's the aspect that they don't think about. Every single one of you guys in this room has a craving right now. When you popped out of your mother's womb as a child, you breathed. You took in some air. Since that moment, you have had a craving. You probably don't even realize it. Let somebody come up to you, throw a bag over your head, you will realize very quickly how you're craving air. It's the same thing when I put a bag of dope in my system. I no longer care about the relationship. I no longer care about having a roof over my head. I no longer care about the job. The only thing that is important is getting that next one. And I will do whatever I have to do to get it, period. So, again, like I said, I'm not going to be in the hotel in Dixie making peach smoothies. It's just not going to happen. I put down drugs and alcohol, and if all it was an allergy, and this is one of the things I sometimes hear in meetings, if all it was an allergy, I'd put down the drugs and alcohol, I'd have the consequences, I've had the desire to stop, and I'd just be done. I'd walk away from it. I would not need to come sit here and talk to you guys. What I found is that means that the allergy is not the main part of the issue. What's the solution to the physical part? Entire abstinence. The issue is that I can't stay abstinent, regardless of the consequences, regardless of the desire to stop, regardless of all those things. So, we go to the second part of the threefold disease, and what that is the mental obsession. You know, this is the insanity that we talk about. You know, who's heard it said insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results? Yeah, it's cute. I've heard it's Albert Einstein's definition. I don't think that's entirely accurate. But that doesn't apply to me. Not in this situation. If I were to walk out this door right now and go smoke crack, I know what would happen. I would lose my job. I'd lose any relationships that I've built. I'd lose the most things that are important to me. I'd burn every bridge that I currently have. And then I'd wind up back in treatment if I'm lucky. If I don't die in a 7-Eleven bathroom somewhere. The insanity is that despite knowing all that, I'll do it again. And again, and again. When we talk about the mental obsession, and those of you that have those papers, it's listed right there, the three things that we refer to. This inability to differentiate the true from the false. You know, I drink because I like the effect. I shoot dope because I like the effect. Whatever that effect is for you, for me it was, I'm able to be present in the moment. I finally, for 1 second, feel okay with myself. I'm not insecure, full of fear, all that stuff. Whatever the effect is, it doesn't matter. The next line says, that sensation is so elusive that while we admit it is injurious, we cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. So after a while, that's one part of it. The other two are the lack of perception, lack of proportion, and I'm going to tie all three of them together for you. Guy walking down the street, talking to himself. I can look at him and probably be like, there's something going on there. He's not entirely there upstairs. Do you think in his own perception, walking down the street, talking to himself, that he thinks he's crazy? Probably not. So what happens is that this lie pops into my head that tells me it's going to be different this time. Despite everything that just happened last time I used, this lie comes in and it's like, SWAT's not going to come tonight. You're definitely not going to rob your mother again. No one's going to die or overdose. It'll be different this time, and here's how. You're a heroin addict. You could definitely just drink successfully. Whatever the lie is, it doesn't matter. Because of that lack of perception, because I can't tell if that's real or not real because it's a lie told in my own voice. If the lie was told in one of your guys' voice, I would be able to tell, like, oh, that's bullshit. But I'm telling myself that, like, it's going to be different. Seriously, you'll be fine. Just have one last hurrah, whatever the lie is, and I'm going to believe it eventually. So what will happen is I'll pick up again, and that phenomenon of craving will develop. So the third part, and this is the part that I feel we don't talk about nearly enough, is the spiritual malady. And I've said it before, I don't know if I was born with an obsession. I don't know if I was born with an allergy. What I do know or believe is that I was either born with a spiritual malady or it was instilled in me at a very young age. This idea of I'm not like these people. I'm different than. This God-sized void that nothing can enter and nothing can fill. I go around and maybe I walk into a room and there's 3 people laughing. They're definitely laughing at me. I'm full of fear. I'm insecure. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. That's insobriety. For me, that seems to be the main issue. So when I'm detoxing, or if I have to detox, I'll use for an extra 6 months to avoid that. Not realizing that once I'm actually detoxed is when the hard part starts. As in early recovery, it's easy to feel a little bit better when you're, you don't have a needle in your neck. And you're in South Florida and you're hashtag I live where you vacation and all that cool stuff. It's easy to feel a little bit better. But what happens is that spiritual malady takes home. And whatever you're using at that moment to fill the void, whether it's a job, whether it's cars, gambling, money, and that's all outside issues, whatever it is, it's not going to be sustainable. I can assure you 100%. And then there's going to be constant chaos in your head. That you need relief from that feeling. That idea of, I'm 26, I live in a fucking halfway house. How'd my life get here? I'm just miserable. All these people are talking about me. My life sucks, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. Eventually, I'll need relief from that. So those are the 3 parts of it. Let me tie the cycle together for you. Let's say I got a girlfriend, and she is absolutely fed up with me using. So, what do? I convince her to stay. I'm 100% done. I do not want to do this anymore. I'm done using. I'm an addict. I can be pretty convincing when I need to. Maybe she buys it, and she's like, I'll stay, but you cannot use again. At that moment, I could sit there, I could pass a lie detector test. I do not want to use again, period. So I'm going through the week, again, not comfortable in my own skin. Drugs, alcohol, heroin, crack, whatever it is, that was my solution. I put that down and I'm still left with this big void here. So I don't feel all right. Maybe me and her are arguing about stupid stuff. I'm insecure. I see her texting someone. I assume she's texting another guy. Friday rolls around and my paycheck gets deposited. And this brilliant idea comes. My friends called and they're going out to the bar to shoot pool tonight. I'm a heroin addict, so I can definitely go to the bar and shoot pool and not have an issue. I get there, and while I'm there, they're all drinking. This brilliant thought comes in my own voice that you could have 1 beer. You could have 1 beer, go back home, and she'd have no idea. That 1 beer would give you a little bit of relief, and you'd feel a lot better. You'd be able to hang out with your friends, you'd feel a lot more comfortable, and again, she'd have no idea. You're not really hurting anyone. So I take that 1 drink, the obsession is hit, and as it says, as I succumb to the desire again, as I always do, the phenomenon of craving develops. So my personal experience is I'll have 1 beer, maybe 1 or 2 more, and then I'm at the ATM and I'm in the hood copping. I come home 3 days later, and she's pissed, if she's still there. She's pissed and she's like, I cannot fucking believe you. This is ridiculous. You promised you wouldn't do this. And maybe I beg her. Maybe I'm like, please, just give me 1 more chance. I'll never, ever do this again. I'm tired of doing it. I don't want to. Maybe she believes it. Going through the week, again, not too comfortable with myself. Friday comes, paycheck. Another brilliant idea comes in. Well, last week you got in trouble because you went out to the bar. Maybe if you just got like a 6-pack and had 1 or 2 beers while she was at work, you'd get that relief. She'd again have no idea, and you'd feel fine. I have 1 or 2 beers, and I'm like, hey babe, I'm going to get cigarettes. Come home 6 days later, haven't showered, covered in dirt, and she's gone. Can anybody in here relate to that? And I encourage you, please internalize that in your own stories and look back at it, because the understanding of it's never going to do you any good. If you can internalize that, what will happen is you'll have 2 options. One is that you will be motivated to do 2 through 12. The other is that you'll take the lackadaisical approach and you will go out and try that. And anybody that's tried that after learning the disease concept knows that it pulls your bottom up to you very rapidly. It sucks to be out using knowing, like, that's the obsession. That's the lie that I went out on. To be doing things that you don't want to do, to get drugs that will not satisfy a craving anyway, it's shitty. It brings people's bottoms up real quick, and they usually come back pretty motivated. So if you can relate to that, you're fucked. This is where we get that from. All my guys know, the first step concept. If I ask, what's your understanding of the first step? And they're like, hey, I'm fucked, they're good. I'm not going to ask them any more questions. So with that, with the physical allergy, we lose control. The way the book poses it, and there's really 2 first step questions, and I'll talk about this and then that's not in the book part, but there's 2 first step questions. One is, when I drink, when I shoot dope, when I smoke crack, can I control how much that I use every time? Chances are, probably not. So let me reword that question for you guys. Let's say, has anyone had 10 bags of heroin and said, I'm going to save 3 of these for tomorrow morning? Yeah, I don't even need to finish the question. And then the mental obsession. We lose choice. This is what they're talking about in powerless. I'm obviously cut off from the power that can free me from the obsession, but I lack the power of choice and drink. Lack of power. That's my dilemma. So, have you ever wanted to stop and not been able to? Yeah, if you've been in and out a while, your chances are you probably wanted to stop before and found out you could not. So, real quick, I don't like to leave people on the idea of, hey, you're fucked, have a good day. What's the way out? The book says that cycle I just talked about is repeated over and over, unless this person can experience an entire psychic change. So, how do I experience that entire psychic change? That's the $1 million question. It's promised in the 12th step. Having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. It doesn't say if by now you possibly, perhaps had a spiritual experience. It doesn't say that. It's in the book. So, if you have any questions on that stuff, I encourage you to get with me or a bunch of people after the meeting. There's the handouts. I'll break it down more for you guys if you want. But I feel like it's crucial for people to learn that. We talk about the BDO and the ADO. The before the doctor's opinion and after the doctor's opinion. My job when I get up here and teach somebody that is to ruin your drinking career. And I know a lot of people that have gone out after learning that, and they come back fairly quickly. So, now let's get to the fun part. My little disclaimer with this is that I by no means intend to offend anybody. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just know that I was in and out for a while because I heard things that sound good in a meeting, and I thought that they were real, and I ran with them. And I just want to be very, very, very clear that some of that stuff could fucking kill you. Period. So let's talk about it. We talk about the book. You guys are obviously at a big book study. It's our standard of truth. In the same way that the Bible is the standard of truth for a Christian, etc., etc. If it's not in the book and it's not about God, you can pretty much safely leave it out. Our sponsor family lives by that. So it's fairly ironic that I'm going to get up here and tell you what's not in the book. But the reason that I teach this is not at all so you can go to some okay meeting and maybe bash some guy after the meeting with the big book. That's not why I'm teaching you this. The reason that I teach this is because Bill Wilson said it's our chief purpose to pull the newcomer with a vision of what sobriety could be like. Just for example, if I come into a meeting, I just smoked crack for 6 years, I lost my family, I lost my job, I lost my girlfriend, my car, my life is literally on fire, and I hear somebody in the back of the room like, I'll always be recovering, just struggling one day at a time to get by. Am I going to stay in that meeting? Absolutely not. It says that this message must have depth and weight, meaning it must come from an alcoholic, but also meaning what sobriety has to offer me has to be just as good, if not better, than what drugs have to offer me, or I'm not staying. It's not going to happen. So, Alcoholics Anonymous. We're gonna talk about quite a few things for the next 20 minutes or so, but it's all about the book. Like I said, if it's not in the book and it's not about God, you can pretty much safely leave it out. So, why do we use the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Let's say I'm back home, PA. Let's say I'm in Philly, Kensington, and I'm at the dope spot, and I've got $500, and I walk outside, and there's a dude on the corner, and I go cop from him, and I give him $100. I go back, I do it, and it's okay. An hour later, I come out, there's a different dude on that corner. Go to him, give him $100, go do it, and it's fire. An hour later, I come out to spend the rest of my money, and they're both there. Who am I going to? Yeah. If you didn't want any cut on your drugs, why would you want any cut on your steps? I'm all for whatever fellowship brings someone closer to God, but this is the only place where we have clear-cut directions on how to get sober. And that's what I needed. You go to a different fellowship and ask 20 people how they did their steps, you're going to get 20 different answers. And here you ask 20 people how they did their steps, you're going to get a very, very similar answer. So, let's talk about it. Alcoholics Anonymous. In 1939, and I said this when I spoke here a few weeks ago, what was going on is that what was in this book was matching what was in the meetings exactly. They called Alcoholics Anonymous the meetings because they were talking about this book. And I'm not 100% sure that that's what's going on in meetings presently. So, where to start? The fellowship. We learn in this book, there's 6 legs, and there is a solution. The chapter is more about what's not going to work for me than what is. We learn about the 6 legs. The first one of which is fellowship. The fellowship is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. In fact, I believe Cocaine Anonymous has the most beautiful fellowship in the world. And it's smart enough to use the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, how many fellowships are there? In the confines of CA or AA? Yeah, there's 2. A couple of you guys have heard me talk about this stuff before. There's the fellowship. There's the first fellowship, which the requirement is the desire to stop drinking or using. Anybody is welcome. With that being said, that's the fellowship of, hey, we can sit around and we all have a common problem. I can sit out there and talk to somebody about how much dope I shot or how much crack I smoked or whatever it is. We all shared a common problem. There's a different fellowship as well, and we talk about it on page 164. And it's the fellowship of the Spirit. And this is the fellowship that those of you that have been through the 12 steps and found this solution that we talk about and are sharing it with others, you watch a different fellowship grow up among you. There are also a different set of requirements there. Real quick, I'm just going to read them to you. You don't have to go to 164, but that's where it is. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Sounds a lot like a 3rd step. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Sounds like a 5th step. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Sounds like 8 and 9. And give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. So there's the fellowship of the Spirit. What people very, very commonly get confused is the difference between the fellowship and the program. I hear people say constantly, I go in and out of the program. Okay, well, there's a different requirement for the program. And what that is first of all, let's break it down. It's a program of action. Where's the first time in the steps that I take action? 4. Yeah, when I put pen to paper on a 4th step. 1 and 2 are conclusions, and 3 is a decision. There is no writing. I'm not going to go there. Like I said, 2 first step questions. I don't need you to write me a list of how your life is unmanageable, especially because your list will probably look a lot like, oh, I lost a job, I lost a girl, I lost blah, 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 blah. I'm more concerned is when you put down the drugs and the alcohol, do you feel worse? Are you irritable, restless, and discontent without that first drink of that bag of dope? That's the unmanageability that I'm concerned about. Because all external unmanageability is just a reflection of however we're treating the internal unmanageability. And that's a whole different concept in and of itself. But a program. The requirement for the program is the 3rd step requirement of, I need to be entirely convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Until I believe that, I do not meet that requirement. That's a far different requirement than just the desire to stop drinking. So I looked it up, the definition of a program, and what I found was pretty interesting. This is a business definition, but I think that it fits to us pretty perfectly. It was defined as a plan of action aimed at accomplishing a clear objective, with details on what work is to be done, by whom, when, and what means or resources. So the first part of that was the objective. What is my objective? You know, obviously we share the primary purpose, to stay sober and carry this message to other alcoholics. But I just explained the disease concept. We all realized that we were fucked. The only way to be unfucked is to have a spiritual experience, to be freed of the obsession to drink and use. So what is my objective? My objective is to have a spiritual experience. How do I do that? It's outlined in this book. The next question is, with details on what work is to be done. So what's the work to be done? Where are they? The steps are cute on the wall. They are an off-the-wall summary of the steps. If I were to go around and hand every one of you a newspaper, you would read you'd read the headline first. That's the summary. If you wanted to really know what it was talking about, you would have to read the article. It's the same thing with this. This is a summary of the steps. If you are in treatment making amends on the phone, you're like, I'm going to go do the 9th step, you're probably going to get off-the-wall results if you have not followed the directions outlined in this book. So the details are right in here. And I believe that it says in masterly detail. That does not leave much room for debate or for, well, I don't think he actually meant that. It doesn't do that. So, whom is the next question. Who's going to do this program? Well, we always hear, I hear two things in the rooms, which are, again, not entirely accurate. Who in here has heard that this is a we program? 2 people? Cool. In a sense, what it is it's a we fellowship. The reason, and what people will do in meetings is they'll quote, it's a we program, and they'll point up to the wall where it says, we admitted we were powerless over the first step, or over alcohol. If anyone's seen the little red book with the original 12 steps in it, and you flip to that, and you look at the steps, the we's not there. And the reason that the we's not there is because they sat down after that and were like, hey, we, the first 100, want to be included in the summary of the steps. The we that it's talking about there is not us. It's the first 100. So it's not a we program. It's a we fellowship. The other thing that I hear is the complete other side is it's a selfish program. Okay. Selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my problem. How could the answer to that possibly be a selfish program? It's a self-concerning program. I need to be concerned about myself before I can help somebody else. But what it says is that my life as an ex-problem drinker depends upon the constant thought of others, not myself. So that answers the whom. Who's going to do it? You have to. I can promise all of you I will not be writing your 4 steps. I will also not be making your amends. If any of you guys want to come make my financial amends, you are all more than welcome. It's not going to happen. I have to do it myself. The next is when. This brings in the issue of time, which is one of the things we're going to address here in the next couple of minutes. The book does not give an exact time frame. What it does do is use words like next, at once. It says that we need to seek this out with all the desperation of drowning men. Not too frequently have I seen someone drowning and just be like, no, I'm good, man. I'm just going to relax for a little bit, and then I'm going to get into the work. It needs to be quick, in my personal opinion. And then what resources? What are our resources? We have one. It's this book. This is the only thing you need. I have sponsees that come to me, and they're like, I don't feel qualified to take somebody through the steps. And my answer to them is always the same. First of all, God deems you ready for sponsorship by somebody asking you. And second question is, do you own a big book? Because if you do, then you are more than qualified to sit down and show somebody the way that worked for you. So, back to the whole meeting thing. Like I said, I don't think anyone is ill-intentioned. I do not think that anyone wakes up in the morning and puts on deodorant and they're like, I'm going to go kill a newcomer today. I don't think that's what they're trying to do. What I think is that there's a big difference between the problem drinker and the real alcoholic. Those of you that have been through this book know a problem drinker can stop if given a good reason to. Let's say that the wife's going to leave them, or they're going to end up in jail, or there's certain consequences that happen, or whatever it is. They can make a decision to stop and do so. The real alcoholic cannot do that. As we just talked about, I've lost choice in drink. I cannot do that. I cannot make a decision to stop and just walk away. If I could, I wouldn't be here right now. So let me give you an example. A problem drinker, here's where the confusion comes in, is if I could be at a bar right now with a problem drinker drinking, and we could look very, very similar. The difference is not in how we drink. The difference is in how we stop. So a problem drinker wakes up in jail, and they're like, holy shit, dude, like, I'm never doing this again. They get a DUI. I'm never, ever going to drink again. That was terrible, too, a stupid decision. And they don't do it. They don't drink anymore. I wake up in jail, and I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have taken 95 last night. Totally different concept. Or if I am in jail, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to drink anymore, that thought is completely out the window the second I step foot out of that jail. Anyone that's been in and out of jail when they're like, hey, I'm not going to use anymore, I'm not going to do it, and then they get out and they're high the next day or that day, they know what I'm talking about. So I think these cute slogans that we're going to talk about come from the problem drinker. Like I said before, they are welcome at our meetings. The only requirement is a desire to stop drinking or shooting crack or whatever it is. The issue comes in is that person does not need to do the same thing that I need to do to stop. They do not need to have a spiritual experience to be freed of the obsession to drink. They don't. They can come in and like the fellowship and maybe go to the gym a few times a week and start to feel better. I will not do that. So what happens is they pick up some time and they're like, hey, cool, I got a year sober. I should probably start sponsoring. And they start sponsoring people like us. And what happens? We die. If I get in the hands of a problem drinker and they are trying to show me how to have a spiritual experience when they have not had one, I will die. So most of these slogans that we're going to talk about, I think, come from that. The first thing, let's talk about it. Right on the title page, it says that we are 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I see this happen constantly. We get kids that come in and they catch fire. You know, maybe they work the steps fairly rapidly, they're on fire for God. They walk into a meeting and they raise their hand and they say, hey, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And they share about God, the solution, whatever it is. Usually immediately following that, some guy in the back of the room with 1,255 years in AA raises his hand and he's like, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And what he'll do is, predictability is predictable. What he does is he quotes page 85, and he says, what I really have is a daily reprieve, contingent upon the maintenance of my spiritual condition, which is cute. You've read one paragraph out of the book. What he heard in the back of the room is this young kid say, I'm cured of alcoholism. I just talked about the allergy. If I were to go eat peaches right now, the same thing would happen. I'm not cured of alcoholism. All that it means to be recovered is that I've been freed from the obsession to drink and use. I said it earlier. Our chief purpose is to pull the newcomer with a vision of what sobriety could be like. It's the same concept. That's what we're trying to do. What better thing can I offer a hopeless drug addict than hope? There's nothing. I can't think of anything. So let's use some examples. How often have we seen somebody in sports break their leg and they go have surgery, come back the next year just as good, if not better? Anyone seen that? Yeah, they've recovered from that initial injury. By no means am I saying that that guy cannot break his leg again. You know, 50 Cent, shot 9 times, wearing a bulletproof vest on his album cover. He recovered from those injuries. Do you think he thinks he's bulletproof? I would assume no. We're not saying we're cured. What we're saying is that I've recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. And again, you will very rarely hear me address myself as a recovered alcoholic. I don't teach it so you can go beat that guy in the back of the room with the big book. He's not going to change his mind anyway. I can think of far better things to do in the 10 minutes after a meeting than argue with somebody about whether or not they're recovered. But we do want to pull people with hope. So, who's heard, don't leave before the miracle happens? Yeah, I'm afraid to get up and go to the bathroom because I think the miracle is going to happen and I'll miss it. I've encouraged guys, when they hear that, just go up to the person after the meeting and be like, hey dude, what's the miracle? And they'll usually be like, I don't really know, I heard it in a meeting and it sounded good. I believe that God shows up on a second basis and performs miracles. I do, 100%. The miracle that the book is talking about is on page 85, and what it says is that the problem has been removed with no effort on my part. That's the miracle of it. The miracle of it is months ago, I could not stop shooting dope, and now the obsession to drink and use has been removed. That's the miracle of it, is what it says, word for word. So, another just verbiage thing. I hear people say all the time, and the reason I point this out is because when they use this word and they're not informed, it usually means that they haven't been taught the disease concept. Unfortunately, once you learn the disease concept off of this paper or out of the doctor's opinion, you already know more than probably 90% of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You are more than qualified to go teach that to somebody else that might not have heard it. Relapse. I hear people say all the time, I keep relapsing, I've relapsed over and over and over again. The fact is that they haven't, for the most part. If I had cancer, and I did that, well, first of all, relapse is defined as falling into an old pattern or behavior. So, if I had cancer and I do the things that are necessary for me to do, I go to the chemo, I get the treatment, and my cancer goes into remission. If it were to come back after that point, it would be called a relapse. If I don't do anything in the first place and the cancer never goes away, it's not relapsing. It's just still there. It's the same concept with this. I see people constantly come into a halfway house or come into the rooms and they don't do anything. They do not do any work to change their lives. And they're like, oh, I've relapsed. I just taught you that the obsession renders you with no choice against the first drink. So you will 100% drink again if you are not freed from that. Knowing that, you're just taking a break and using it. If I were to come into wherever the rooms and I don't work the steps, I'm just taking a break from using. You know, I don't go to a bar and... If I go to a bar and don't drink any alcohol, am I going to get drunk? No. If I go to a dope man and don't shoot any dope, am I gonna get the effect I want? No. If I come to a 12-step fellowship and I do not work the 12 steps, it's not going to do a fucking thing either. It's just not going to happen. We're sitting in a 12-steps fellowship and people just aren't doing the steps, which is cool for a problem drinker. It's not going to work if you can answer those two questions, I promise you. So a relapse would be someone that goes through and has been freed of the obsession. They have changed their life. Let's say they stop doing the mechanics that have, connected them with that power that freed them of the obsession. What's going to happen? The obsession's going to return, they're going to go back out, and at that point it would become a relapse. So, I told you we'd talk about time. I hear things like people saying, hey, call me for 30 days, and then we'll get into the work. Again, I don't think ill intention. What I do think that they're trying to do is qualify somebody's willingness. I've said it before. I'm not God. Who am I to qualify somebody's willingness? If they come up to me and ask me to sponsor them, they've already qualified their willingness. It's time to get into the work. Let's say I'm driving home tonight and I get in a car accident. My arm's severed off and I'm bleeding all over the highway. And they rush me to the emergency room and the doctor's like, hey man, you look pretty bad. Hang out in the waiting room for 30 days and then we're going to do surgery. I would leave. I would die or I'd leave. It's the same thing with sponsorship. Someone comes in dying spiritually, and I'm like, hey, hang out for 30 days, and then we're going to get into the soul surgery that's going to remove the obsession to drink. They'd be ludicrous. I know that I've taken people through the steps in 4 hours, and I've taken people through the steps in months. The reason for that is that by the 10th step, it is promised that the obsession to drink and use is removed. Now, that's followed by action, clearly. The book, like I said, uses time references of next. When it says next, what does it mean? Right now, immediately, or at once. This decision was crucial, but unless at once, followed by a strenuous effort to face and rid ourselves of the things that block us, those words, the desperation of a drowning man, same thing, all of that. Now for the fun part, the slogans and suggestions. Things that we hear in meetings that sound good, they sound accurate, they're just not real. Or they don't work for me. The idea of no matter what, don't pick up. Yeah, throw a few more no matter what's in there. It sounds cool, it sounds good. I can't do that. If I could, no matter what, not pick up, I can promise you 100% I'd not be sitting here right now. I definitely wouldn't answer my phone for a terrified newcomer at 3 in the morning. I wouldn't sponsor people because I'd just be not picking up no matter what. I'm the opposite of that. No matter what, I will pick up. When everything in my life demands that I suit up and show up, I show up high, every time. And there's a bunch of those. Go to meetings, it gets better. Go to meetings and don't pick up. Put the plug in the jug. All of that stuff comes from somebody that could come to a meeting, not do that, and stay sober. That's the only logic I can come to. It doesn't work for us. If you've lost choice, you will 100% drink again. The first step, the idea that I'm beyond human aid, what is the fellowship? It's a group of humans. And I believe firmly that God shows up and works in here, but it's not going to be sufficient enough to remove the obsession. It's just not. What are some other ones? Meeting makers make it. You know, I used to bash this in a sense, and I don't anymore because it's not wrong. You know, meeting makers make it to meetings where hopefully they pick up a sponsor and work the steps and find God. What I do know is if you just make meetings and you are an alcoholic, it's not going to work out too well. Anyone tried the whole, I'm going to go to meetings and it'll get better? I have. It did not get any better. It got a lot worse. Keep coming back. Another one. We tell people in our family, stay. The idea of keep coming back, like sure, keep coming back to the meetings. What I hate is that in South Florida, we use that as like a, hey, shut the fuck up to the newcomer. You know, they're in the room sharing and they're talking about how their roommate stole their peanut butter and how their life is terrible or whatever it is. And we're like, yeah, keep coming back, buddy. This kid is full of fear, dying spiritually. Do you think that kid's coming back? Not a chance. Not a chance. There's a bunch of them. You know, the idea of you didn't get sick overnight, you're not going to get well overnight. Okay, again, I'm not God. Who am I to say? If somebody needs to have a white light experience with whatever that thing you want to call God is, who am I to say they can't do that? That God can't do that? A better question is like, how quick do you want to get better? That's how quickly you should work the steps. What are some other ones? Throw them out.
Time takes time.
Time takes time. Some of them I don't have an issue with. There's a few of them. Time takes time. I guess it does. But what that's telling me, I believe that the message is being portrayed when someone says time takes time. There's a difference between time and quality. I've met people with 15, 20 years that just don't have anything that I want. They're miserable. And I've met guys with 3, 6 months who are absolutely on fire. There's a huge difference. So yeah, it takes time to accumulate time, obviously, but there's a big difference between quality and the amount of time. And I'll take quality over time any day. What are some other ones? Easy does it.
Insanity.
Insanity?
The same thing over and over.
That one we talked about, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, doesn't apply to us. Relapse is part of recovery. I have guys that go out all the time. The only thing that changes when someone goes out is their sobriety date and their story. Relapse does not have to be a part of your story. Like I've said before, if this is your first time in treatment, you never have to drink again. Everyone in here has the exact same chance of staying sober from this second on, depending upon what you do. Depending upon what you do when you walk outside of this meeting. If you get involved, do the work, do the steps, I can promise you 100% if you are thorough, you will not drink again. Period. Sometimes, like I said, people are taught the disease concept and they do go out. And then at that point, it is part of their story. Usually that motivates them when they come back. You know, it sucks to be out experiencing the disease concept. Live and let live. I don't really have an issue with that one. I think a lot of people don't, as newcomers, don't know how to live and let live. I think it's just kind of not an advanced concept, and I think there's action followed by everything, and that's kind of just like the lackadaisical, hey, I'm going to live and let live. But I don't really have an issue with it. Easy does it is one that we commonly misuse. You know that guy that I talked about that is drowning and threw away his life, and we're like, hey, easy does it, buddy. Just relax. No. What? Easy does it is using the idea of, at this time they work the steps very rapidly. I probably should not go back to the place that I live, and let's say my parents are fighting, and I'm like, you guys should probably go do inventory and meditate. Easy does it in that regard. I just robbed them 20 days ago, and now I'm telling them to do spiritual practices. Easy does it. Not easy does it in the sense of, hey, I wish you a slow recovery, buddy. What are some other good ones? We got a few minutes here. I'll do one or two more, and
Keep it simple, stupid.
yeah, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think you should, in a sense, keep it simple. What I think you should do more is keep it to the mechanics of the book. Which in and of itself is very, very simple. The 12 steps are not complicated. They're very, very practical. Yeah. What about, do you guys have any? This too shall pass? Yeah. Isn't that off like a movie, like Lord of the Rings or something? Yeah, everything passes. You know, I heard a wise man once say, "Time takes time." It's the same thing. You know, life shows up. You know, and life also continues no matter what. So, what's that?
Play the tape through.
Yeah, play the tape through. That's another one that sounds cute. My book tells me that I cannot bring into my mind with sufficient force the consequences of a week or a month ago. So what that means is you will never ever, unless I'm using it to relate, I will not sit up here and tell war stories. You know, the book tells me that my own war story will not keep me sober. I can promise you 100% my war story won't keep you guys sober. You're not going to be out there with the obsession to drink and be like, I remember that guy said that he shot dope behind a dumpster in Kensington, and I don't really want to do that. It's not going to occur to you. It's just not going to happen. Fake it till you make it. Yeah. With that one, like, I don't care what motivates someone to do the steps. I really don't. You know, as a newcomer, you don't have to believe in God. You don't have, all you have to believe is that something works. And if you firmly understand that you're fucked, you'll probably believe that. I don't care what motivates you. I don't care if you're here for your family. I don't care if you're here for your whatever. I don't care if you're here to get a job back. It's irrelevant. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go through the work and you're going to have an experience with whatever you want to call that thing God is. I personally don't care if you believe in God at this point in the game. Because what's going to happen is you'll have that experience. I don't go put a cake in the oven and think to myself, I really hope that shit bakes. I don't. I put the cake in the oven and it's going to bake whether I believe in it or not. It's the same concept. We put our ingredients into the cake or the oven of God, and you will have that experience with whatever that thing you call God is. I want to tell you guys one real quick story, and I'll finish it. It's a pretty good representation of my life. You know, I've heard this story told to me. It's not my personal experience, but I'm going to tell it in the first person because it's easier. Months and months and months ago, I got up and I got on the train. I was headed to work. And I go up to the thing. I get a newspaper. I get a pack of cookies. And I get a coffee, and I set it down, and I sit down, and a gentleman sits down across from me. You know, normal dude, business suit, headed to work, all that stuff, and he does the weirdest thing. He reaches over, he opens my cookies, and he takes one of my cookies and eats it. I have not been taught how to deal with someone stealing my cookies. Very irate. And I'm thinking, like, maybe he just didn't realize he was taking my cookie. He had to know, but I'm like, whatever, so I don't say anything. So I reach over and I grab a cookie and I eat it, thinking that this situation is over. And as soon as I do that, he reaches over and grabs another cookie. And I'm like, is this guy for real? At this point, I definitely can't say anything because I didn't say anything the first time. And now it's a lot more awkward. So I'm like, what the hell? And this continues. There's about 8 cookies in the pack. I'll take one, he'll take one, I'll take one, he'll take one. And finally his stop comes and he gets up to leave. We exchange a look. And I'm like, terrified that this guy just stole my cookies. He walks off. You know, I finish my coffee, I set it down, and I get up to leave, and I pull out my newspaper, and there's my cookies. Right there under the newspaper. Again, it's the same concept of the boat story I told last time. I made something personal due to my lack of perception that was not personal. The funny part of that is there's some guy walking around with the same story, but without the punchline. You know, without rooms like these and people like you, I'd have missed my whole life. I love all you guys. Thank you very much.